Hey, afternoon or whatever time it is when you're watching this. I guess it's kind of pushing into early evening. It's about 5 o'clock where I am. Uh, okay, so if you're tuning in for the first time, which kind of weird, but okay. I am Sean, Librarian Writer Geek. I'm Librarian Writer Geek on Twitch and YouTube. Follow and subscribe, whatever, in both places, both or either place if you want to see my content and see it, whatever, know when it goes up. I'm also on Blue Sky, where I do post about 15 minutes before I go live with any of these streams, as well as a bunch of other stuff, and mostly repost other people's things, that kind of stuff. Otherwise, website right here. Go there, find links to this stuff, find links to some other things, find stuff I've written about and posted, and it's been a long time since I've updated anything there, and I really should at some point if I ever get the spoons. But again, to be fair, it's kind of amazing that I have the energy to do this right now, because not that it's like I'm not super exhausted, but it is. But I did drive out to my parents' place yesterday and spent the night there because my sister and her husband and their kid they came down along with my their child, my nephew. They came down and the whole family got together. It's been a little while since we got this much of the family together for in one place for an extended period of time. And I spent the night there, but that turns into, okay, right, now I have to, when do I come back? When do I get back? And when I get back, it's, oh right, I have a bunch of stuff to take care of, and but that's been handled. And yeah, so Friday's stream, my regular stream, we finished up, did all the little mini-sodes for the last door, and since that ended within like 20 to 30 minutes, I figured, you know what? Okay, I really have no excuse to not stream on Sunday afternoon. And so I'm going to do that. And I already kind of planned to do this already, but, that just really confirmed it. So, okay. So, full disclosure, I was given a free copy of this game to take to as a review as a person sign. So okay, let's just first jump over to what we're going to be talking about today. Okay, all right. So today I'm going to be taking a look at the game RiverBank from Kobold Press. Full disclosure, I did get this was a free reviewer copy because I am on I signed up for their list of, hey, do you want to get stuff and maybe do reviews of stuff for us and, free publicity. So it's mostly, hey, I get I get a free game and they maybe get me to talk about it for them for free. So we're going to take a look at this. And I've looked through some of this, and it's just, I mean, if you look at the art, if this art here is the kind of thing that makes you go, okay, it's charming and whimsical, and it's cozy cottagecore type stuff. What if the Wind in the Willows was it if we had a tabletop game based on the Wind in the Willows instead of on Conan and Lord of the Rings and that sort of thing. So that's what I'm going to be looking at today. And before we do, I have some music because there is not going to be any there's no audio here. So hey, let's have a little maybe hopefully sort of appropriate-ish music. All right. Okay. Okay, alright, da-da-da. I'll admit this, Hugo Nebula Award winner Keys Johnson. I'm not familiar with their work, but I do kind of feel an urge to check them out now. So, hey, if you happen to know or are familiar with their work, maybe we'll take... I don't know. Here's some stuff. Again, more nice, fun little artwork. It's all very cute. Get into various chapters and stuff. Okay. So yeah, we're gonna kind of. I do love. They include a bunch of. There are lovely little footnotes in here that occasionally clarify things or just include little jokes. But anyway, so yeah, setting out. Yeah. RiverBank's a cottagecore role-playing game designed for adults and adults to be, inspired by The Wind in the Willows by Kenneth Graham, the books of Beatrix Potter, and other animal tales across history, as well as the light fiction in the children's literature of the Victorian and Edwardian eras and later. And again, footnote, for a list of the sacred texts anointed of old and other RiverBank adjacent works, see Appendix 1. There you go. In it, you play civilized, anthropomorphized animal characters in an idealized countryside that resembles post-Edwardian England. There are motor cars, photography, and great houses, and you might wear spats. Overseen by the GM, and you and your animal friends have parties, plans, and adventures, and get into the sorts of trouble your personalities dictate. Anything from ambitiously promising to run the stick fair game booths to hosting your troublesome nephew. From outfitting an all-animal expedition to the North Pole, or maybe just the head of the river, to stealing an aeroplane, perhaps accidentally. You may have interactions with the wild world and the human people who so common there, visiting the village or even town, traveling to the lakes or Bath, or calling on a publisher when your very important book comes out. So yeah, this is, again, to give you the idea of what we're dealing with here, this is fun, silly adventures with relatively low stakes. I think it would make a lovely alternative, because occasionally you want to do something that's just silly and fun, and yeah. Anyway. Hey, moving on. Okay. So let's see. Difference about this game. Characters can succeed at most realistic deeds and side effects. Characters can succeed at most realistic actions if the players are willing to take chances that may make things worse in other, sometimes spectacular ways. The mechanics for performing deeds are simple and familiar. The game master creates a target number, and the player responds with a challenge number that includes a die roll. If you, the player, generate the result the same as or larger than the target number, you succeed. If your challenge number is smaller than the target number, you have 3 options. Accept the failure, triggering failure side effects. You might succeed by switching the stat used to build your challenge number to the Pother stat. We'll be getting into that soon. Which triggers summoning Pother side effects. Or you succeed by buying animality or animality poetry points, rolling dice, and moving along the animality poetry range. This choice may change your stats or behavior, or even drop you into absolute poetry or absolute animality. And so, yeah, but also, and here's something that I kind of feel is really fun. The random use of stats. So, you have 4 stats. Will we get into that? You know what? We'll move into that in a bit. Okay, so little things. Yeah, so you have 4 stats, which are Charm, Intrepidity, Pother, and Sense, which, you know, hard to map those onto any of the standard 6 ability scores. So Sense is not necessarily being smart and wise, but yeah, we maybe get into exactly what these are. But also, when you are performing a deed, you know, when you need to generate a challenge number, you don't get to pick which stat you use. You have to roll, and it will be Charm, Intrepidity, or Sense. So if one of those is really low, you're probably gonna fail. And even if you don't necessarily fail, even if you do get a good one, you can still fail. Which I don't. So I do not believe you can roll Pother, because that isn't what Pother does. We'll get to that. Animality, Poetry is a. As you move away from the center point, your stats suffer and you start to behave strangely. During a game, characters may move back and forth along the range and even fall off the end into absolute animality, where you might shuck off your clothing and start building a nest, or absolute poetry, where you might stop everything and start making art. I love it. That sounds fun. And haphazardry, I believe this is adventures or situations that characters encounter will evolve and become more complicated across game sessions based on players' and game masters' decisions. Whatever else may be happening, the characters get derailed at arbitrary intervals when the haphazardry timer goes off, usually every half hour. Drawing a haphazardry card at this point adds another problem to the mix. Anything from a lost pet to everyone getting hungry. Again, we literally have a mechanic that says, okay, it's been about 30 minutes. Let's toss something else into the mix to keep things interesting. It's great. All right. I don't know how far we're gonna get in this. I probably definitely gonna try and get through chapter 1, and maybe into chapter 2 and the rest. I don't know. We'll see. All right. So obviously, chapter 1, making character. Wow, crazy. So, okay, we do know. So we got a couple of things. Need to note. Okay. When it is capital A animals, these are the special intelligent. So RiverBank includes both animals, capital A, of the poetry-loving, charades-playing types, and ordinary animals, the creatures of which a scientist would give an elegant Linnaean name, which is that? Okay, 12. Carl Linnaeus, Swedish biologist, formalized rules for naming organisms in the 18th century. He looks quite nice in his portraits. Aww. So, capital A animals are as intelligent as humans, though a bit naive. Though their naivete and good nature may make them seem simple, whereas ordinary animals in the game behave in ways you would expect ordinary animals in our world to behave. Size. Animals are usually not the same size as ordinary animal counterparts. Ordinary mouse might be 2 inches long, but a proper clothes-wearing mouse may stand a bit over a foot tall, may keep her tail tucked modestly away under her skirts. Some animals are actually smaller than their ordinary counterparts. A goose character might measure 2.5 feet tall, whereas ordinary gray-lag goose can be half again as large. RiverBank animals don't migrate or hibernate, but they do. Winter would potentially affect them by encouraging long naps and a slowdown from active summertime life. Animals do have preferences for where they live, types of places where they live, but it's not, but they do live in houses. They do live in their homes are, actual homes and buildings and stuff. It's hobbit holes, not, little tunnels that they just dug in the side of a hill. And sure. Diet, yeah. Yeah, RiverBank animals, they eat what people eat. They eat the same type of things people eat. Obviously, if you want to play a vegetarian, if you want your character to be vegetarian, you can do that. Etc., etc., etc. Just a bunch of other stuff. Okay, so... Anyway, getting into actual character creation. And so you pick what sort of animal you like. And I appreciate the verbiage here, or the language here, because what sort of animal are you? That feels very appropriate for the time period and the setting. Your animal sort gives you some preliminary stats of some innate peculiarities, which are things very specific to your type, to your sort of animal, as well as things about the general size, what kind of social organization do you tend to have, what type of places do you like to live, that sort of thing. Then you pick 3 peculiarity. These from a general list. Apply you get a certain number of other. Okay, you get 4 points to spend on your stats however you like. Never a bad idea. Yeah, that eventually you get. See, you'll add those to any adjustments you get from peculiarity. These that you picked up to get your basic stat. Then you select knacks, which are things you can do. So, like, we'll get into it. Roll for an insufficiency, so you do have something wrong. There is definitely something wrong. Some area that you're not. Some area that is a problem, and you do not necessarily have any control over that. You get to have an appalling relative. You have an appalling relative. I love that. That's great. This is a wonderful thing, and I love that idea. Though you can potentially opt out of having an appalling relative. You can opt out of having an appalling relative, and you can also choose to have a pet. In this case, pets are all, very large bugs. And you can opt out of that appalling relative by using character building tokens, which are also things to use to, start out with certain pieces of equipment and whatnot. Either just cause, or to address some shortcomings that you might have. Other stuff, etc., etc. Okay, peculiarities versus knacks. Okay, every animal has peculiarities. Every animal has basic characteristics based on their sort, like bats having wings or newts having sticky tongues. When you select a sort of animal, you receive the innate abilities of this sort. So these are your innate peculiarities. You then select 3 personal peculiarities from a list. Peculiarities usually affect one or more of your basic stats, and afterwards can be used to inflect your role-playing. Innate peculiarities affect preliminary stats as well, but this was calculated into the numbers given. Knacks. In most role-playing games, characters can have special expertise, skill, or abilities that make them better than usual at specific actions, like fighting with a sword, picking a lock, or performing a magic spell. RiverBank knacks give this sort of advantage on deeds you might want to perform. As you create your character, you select 4 knacks from the list. You'll be able to use them again and again during gameplay. And insufficiencies. Impairments you roll for. Many times insufficiency affects your ability to perform certain deeds, while others make you clumsy or liable to swoon. Love it. Okay. Alright, so now we actually get into what are these different stats, what do they mean? So, Charm. Charm's the stat of successfully interacting with animals and humans. And to be clear, yes, this is not like some secret, hidden, at least in this game, animals, RiverBank, and all that stuff, that they are not like some hidden secret society that nobody knows about. It's like, no, humans are around, they exist, humans are also around, they know about you, they can sometimes interact with you, and you can interact with them. It's not weird, it's not strange or abnormal in any way. It just kind of is. So, Charm, right. Successfully interacting with humans and animals and humans, rather. Often it can get what it wants simply by asking nicely. So, example, in The Wind in the Willows, the toad has high charm, whilst would his friends keep bailing him out of trouble. Note, anyone with charm as their highest stat takes a point of poetry when faced with a large group. Anyone with charm as their lowest stat takes a point of animality in the same circumstances, as described in the animality poetry complications in Chapter 5. I've completely forgotten about that, but I remember there was something like, right, having high or low in one or more different stats. Yeah, anyway. Intrepidity. You are bold. If you have high intrepidity, you are bold, dauntless, gutsy, stalwart, stout-hearted, and undaunted. A stat that thinks of a bold new project and then does it. Doesn't always reflect conventional courage. Winnie the Pooh and Piglet have high intrepidity when they go hunting for heffalumps, but neither of them feels very brave about it. So that's an important distinction to make, I think. Yeah. Intrepidity is the let's go out and do thing. Come up with thing and then go do it. That is your stat. Yeah, that is your stat. What are your chances of coming up with a new adventure? Pother. Okay, we brought this up before. It's great. Okay. It's a somewhat obscure English, I feel, possibly somewhat dated, meaning fuss or trouble. Oh boy. If you have high pother, you are a chaos magnet. Things just seem to happen because of you, to you, and around you. Sometimes your decisions or actions make the chaos happen, but if anyone in your group of friends is going to find a treasure map hidden in the cellar or accidentally step on a nail, odds are it's you. I love that. The idea that, okay, this is not necessarily a good thing, it is not necessarily a bad thing, it is if something is gonna happen, it's gonna happen to you. And I think that's lovely. That's wonderful. Sense is being grounded, level-headed, rational, reasonable, and sensible. You might think of it as common sense. Sense is the stat of sound and prudent judgment based on carefully observing situations or facts, thinking things through, and taking the best option. Yeah. This is not necessarily about being smart, but it is going like, okay, hold on, let's take a second to think about this. All right. So we have 16 sorts of animals. Are they all here? Which are badgers, bats, corvids, which is crows, mostly specifically crows or magpies. Some rodents, which include subtypes of dormouse, mouse, rat, or water rat. Columbids, which are doves and pigeons. Waterfowl, meaning ducks, geese, and herons. Foxes. Amphibians, being frogs or toads. Lagomorphs, fancy word, rabbits/hares. Hedgehogs, lizards or newts, which are classified as reptiles for reasons. Moles, otters, owls, squirrels, and mustelids or stoats/weasels. And I kind of like them. Some may seem to overlap. For example, ordinary badgers are mustelids and thus related closely to stoats, weasels, and otters, yet badger is its own sort of animal, and mustelids, stoats, and weasels, and otters are separate sorts. Often arise because famous literary or artistic animal of that sort. The badger and the otter may be mustelids, but they are major characters in The Wind in the Willows, one of the sacred texts anointed of old. Okay, alright, we're gonna just kind of scan through the options real quick. Again, badger, they're large, they tend to favor night time and tend to live, they tend to be more solid. Let me see, how do they spend, okay. Derived from species that live alone. Okay, yeah, they live alone, tend to live alone. And yeah, going through each of these, start with preliminary stats. The total up to 15. In this case, badgers by default have very high sense but very low pother, so they're not terribly exciting, but they are very grounded in general. Bats, very similar, though they are far less charming and a bit more intrepid, but again, very sensible. Corvids, very intrepid, very little sense, but not terribly high pother. So they don't necessarily attract events to them. Things don't necessarily happen to them and whatnot, but you know, they are adventurous types. Various rodent types, decent, but again, more intrepid than sensible or pother-ish. Whatever you want to call it. Doves/pigeons, very high charm, very low intrepidity, moderately, somewhat pother, but again, yeah, okay, sure. Waterfowl, here we go. Here's where we start getting the fun stuff. Okay, everything else is kind of meh, but that pother score is like maxed out at 6. It's great. I love it. I love the animals that have the very high base pother. Okay, again, fox, high charm, high intrepidity, low pother, moderate sense. Frogs or toads, again, here we go. Very intrepid, much pother, very little in the way of charm or sense. That's wonderful. I love it. Hares/rabbits, not much sense, kind of pretty high pother, pretty decent good charm too. Hedgehogs, very charming, decent amount of pother, not very intrepid, not moderate sense. And yeah, I believe the reason that lizards and newts are classified the same is mostly because they kind of look the same. Yeah, here we go. Newts are actually amphibians, but this sort combines lizards and newts because of the similarities in their morphology. So yeah, again, low charm, low intrepidity, very high pother, decent sense. So, Moles, high charm, high sense, moderate intrepidity, very low pother. Otters, again, we're getting into the more very intrepid, not so sensible, very low pother. Owls, very high sense, kind of pother, not moderate charm, very low intrepidity. You get the idea. Yeah. And again, And we got squirrels and stoat/weasels. Bring it back again with that 6 pother and high intrepidity. It's great. All right. Yeah, the idea. And again, none of these are necessarily saying that you can't, well, we'll get into other stuff. Okay, so personal peculiarities, including things like these, again, they either give you a flat bonus. Let's see. These specific details, characterization, flesh out characters in interesting ways. In many cases, you choose which stat your peculiarity alters, whether it affects sense or pother, has the same effect on that stat, but the choice offers role-playing alternatives. Make adjustment and as required, etc. Okay, so yeah, like appreciates the finer things. You either you can get a +1 to your charm or a +1 to sense, because believe in self-reliance just gives you a +1 sense. Believes in the unexplained can either be a bonus to charm, where implying, okay, so with +1 to charm is your friends may see it as an eccentricity, but it undeniably makes you an entertaining companion. Or you could get a bonus to pother, where mysteries around us become somewhat distracting even when you're trying to do something quite important, like baking a cake or writing a letter to the Times, which I feel is the more interesting option. But then again, I like the idea of getting maxing out pother as much as possible. And again, we can see some of this where it's like, okay, you take either this or this or this or this. Then we have stuff of like, gives not a damn. You have, or at least act as though you have, complete indifference to goings-on. This may make you impatient, or you may tend to hurry things along. As a portmanteau peculiarity, gives not a damn affects multiple stats at once. -1 to charm. As your friends dither endlessly, they sense that you're not on board with their leisurely approach to decision making, and you get a +1 to intrepidity and a +1 to pother. What you call overthinking, others might call a reasonable approach to problems. I love it. I love it. I find it interesting that has a job is a peculiarity, but this is, again, given the time period, this is supposed to be like 1911 to 1913 in southwest England, southern England, something like that. I know town, as they continue to refer to it, is supposed to be London, so somewhere near-ish London, to where travel there wouldn't be unexpected, I guess. Would be not unreasonable, I suppose. And I think the idea is generally that you're supposed to be high upper middle class to lower gentry, so you may or may not actually have a real job, because that's boring. Again, has enthusiasms, love it. And okay, here we go. So we had has a job where you actually do things, you actually do have some kind of responsibilities. Maybe you're not, probably not something on the as like, oh, you actually have like hours that you need to work, but examples be reporter, agriculturalist, vicar, world famous novelist, barrister, star cricketer for the RiverBank 11, suffragist, postmistress, or whatever. Let's see. So we have so they have things like is comfortably well off, which is like, you can only pick one of three between comfortably off, dependent, or poor-ish. So comfortably off is yeah, you have money, you don't, but you don't you have money, but you don't really, you have enough money that you don't need to actually worry about paying bills and that sort of thing. Practically speaking, all characters in this cozy world have the means to own pretty things and afford their pleasures, unless the player is determined otherwise, but you're doing rather better than that. Mostly this gives you extra character building tokens, which you can then use to buy stuff like equipment and whatnot. Dependent is kind of a fun one. While not personally rich, you have an appalling relative who gives you a more than generous allowance, which enables you to enjoy the finer aspects of life. But this comes with a terrible curse: the appalling relative. We'll get into that in a bit. You get an extra 2 character building tokens, and you have to have at least one appalling relative, even if you pay to not have one. Poorish. Alright, you may be gentry or the middling classes, but alas, you don't have the readies. What is that? Readies is money at hand that one can use immediately. Ready cash. Throwing money at a problem isn't a reliable solution, though you contrive and even find great satisfaction in how well you manage. So you only have 4 character building tokens. This increases only 1 stat, but which you choose may imply something different about your roleplay. Lots of ways to stretch feeling or your experience. Okay. So yeah. I suppose that's the closest thing to actually any kind of class discussion on moneyed wealth and what such that this game is gonna get into. Okay, so there's a knows everything peculiarity. Okay. Rather a lot of things that, in your opinion, would make the lives of others better. You enjoy imparting this knowledge. For example, wouldn't your friends appreciate knowing that Silphium was a kitchen herb so delicious that ancient Romans ate it to extinction? Increases only 1 stat, but which you choose might imply. You, dear reader, of course, already knew this because you read footnotes. Sure. Okay. It's really quite strange that sometimes your friends do not want your well-meant and useful information. In fact, they seem more interested in starting a motor car or running away from a dog. Collecting knowledge is rigorous work involving books, attending public lectures, and the like. All this are not marks of a sensible life. What is? So, there is some sort of connection between sense and knowledge, but again, it's not necessarily a given. Oof. Okay, yeah. And then, once you've selected 3 of those, you get to then apply 4 points to your various stats, however you like to eventually get then you add that along with the modifications from your peculiarities to get your to get your final, I don't know if it was final or whatever, you get your base stats. Okay, so Nax. There's a lot of these. There's a lot of these, and I'm not even going to read all of them, which is like, yep, here. There's a huge list of them. Most of them are, these are less about, these don't affect stats, but they do give bonuses to doing things. So, we have sway deep. We have things like sway deeds, and I think braininess, or clever paws deeds. Deeds under certain circumstances, that kind of thing. And then you roll for an insufficiency. I love this because it's like, yes, we need to add some fun, add a little randomness to things. It's great. Okay, and now we get the appalling relative. Okay, so, I have an example here. So you need to obviously pick a bunch of these things. You can obviously, some of these at least you can actually roll for. So yeah, you're going to have to decide on their name and their sort and pronouns. But you can roll for a number of things, namely, starting with how many appalling relatives do you have? You can obviously have none, but you can't. But the max you can have is 2, and that's kind of unlikely. You can roll to see what their relationship is. Roll for how old they are, because you know they might be. I think it'd be really interesting to get the middling age, but also get like either great aunt, great uncle, or grandparent. I think that would be very interesting. I don't know. That would be kind of interesting. Determine which side. Oh, okay. So it goes like this. Okay, so if they're unrelated, it's neither father's side nor mother's side. And of course, we have to roll for some particulars about them. Things like dotes, probably not on you. Obsessed with ancestry. Nosy. Has cane and threatens people with it. Writing their memoirs, which are red hot, or writing their memoirs, which are very dull. It's lovely, fun. And then, of course, we have the very important bit, which are, their greatest weapon, and to get what they want from you, which is, what's their usual means of trying to get you to force you to do things, and it could be anything for acts as though you've already agreed, threatens to come and stay, sometimes they do, tries to make you feel guilty either about their own advanced years, obligations to the family or another higher power. And it's again, we have the appalling relative, so we have this automatic built-in cause of drama or excitement, or just a built-in obstacle for everybody. And someone to drag you away. Where are you going? Could be a number of places. And then finally, again, adding, let's see, home name appalling relative, likely as anyone to have a name for their home. Usually appalling relative is the same type, sort of animal you are, but you can find yourself adopted, formally or otherwise, by someone who applies all the same moral pressure a blood relative would. Fun. Again, one of the what was it? Peculiarity, I believe, was having a pet, and as mentioned, all the pets are in different types of insects, because it would be weird. Selected has a pet personal peculiarity and pay a character building token in step 7. You begin as a pet owner. So, we kind of, one of the things established about the setting is capital A animals don't keep ordinary animals as pets, because it's weird. So we don't have any of those like Goofy Pluto situations where it's like, okay, Goofy is a dog, but he wears pants and can talk, but he also has a pet, Pluto, who is also a dog, but doesn't wear clothes and can't talk. And that's kind of weird. Yeah. And number of options there. Okay, character building token. And default, you have 5, but you can have, if you are poorish, you only have 4. Dependent or comfortably off, you have 7 or 8. And you can use those to, buy fun things like bits of equipment. Bonuses for your little things for your home. You could spend 4 points to have no appalling relative. But you only select this option during character generation. After that, you have no power to remove appalling relatives. And if you have dependent peculiarity, you have to have at least 1. And finally, round out character, etc., etc. Okay, didn't really get into the different types of homes, but there's stuff about that in chapter 4 for more details. Because that's definitely something in this type of game. It's definitely something worth thinking about and putting at least some amount of effort into deciding on. Complete character sheet. And there are the website RiverBank.rpg.com, I believe, or the Kobold Press store. You can download the pre-generated characters for free, which, to give you an idea of what a filled out character sheet looks like. Okay, let's see. We've been going for not quite an hour, so maybe we'll get into chapter 2, which I only kind of looked at. Okay. Now we're getting into how does the game actually run. So normally you start the session, the GM goes into fills out details about between times, which is what happened between sessions, because it might be days or weeks or maybe even months in game between different events, different games, different sessions. And apparently there's some. All right, we introduce the situation, which is here's the scenario. We set up the catalyst character to get things moving. Stuff happens, things get worse. Sometimes it's complications from, just what situation. And sometimes it's because of things characters did. And sometimes it's, the haphazardry. Have things like the haphazardry timer went off, or someone failed a thing, we have summoning pother. It happens. Eventually, if things get too crazy, we can always introduce simplifiers to just, okay, here's something that's going to swoop in and deal with that situation and then leave. Get to the end of the situation, develop any establish consequences, I suppose, and then award character building tokens and knickknacks. So, let's get into a little more detail. So yeah, okay, actually gonna skip ahead of between times. You can roll. Let's see, there's something about rolling. Let's see. Between times portion of the game session breaks into 5 parts. GM decides how much time has passed. GM determines what has happened since last time. Rolling on tables for environment and denizens. Also shares calendar events from chapter 5. Yes, there is a calendar in this game. Secretly rolls on the preset encounters table for random encounter to introduce later. Each player shares the news, what they've been up to since last time. And each player draws a between times card. If this gives them a reason to alter their news, they can do so. If between time cards dictate a short-term change to their characteristics, they record that. So environment, windstorm, overcast. Problem with the lock in the village, so no human boats have ventured above the lock. Interesting. All right. Okay. So they do have. I do believe they are going to have or will have special cards for between times and a bunch of other things, but otherwise you can just use a regular deck of playing cards. Between time denizens, stuff happening with people versus stuff happening in the area. Okay. All right. Okay. Introduce situation. After between times, you might think the main event begins. Scenario or adventure plan, perhaps designed by your game master. This is the situation you find yourself in. Chapter 6 includes various complete situations ready to play, designed for GMs who would like extra support or didn't have a lot of time to prepare. Fair enough. Future scenarios seeds that leave more of the game master's imagination. So, yeah, more short situations all share certain elements. Situation starts as either exciting or regrettable. It has a goal and stakes, and usually started by a catalyst character. Okay. Who's the catalyst? No situation outlining the adventure of the game start offer description they can read, paraphrase, or pass to the players, but situation really starts when catalyst character does something to get the ball rolling. GM uses situation notes to determine which character becomes the catalyst, usually relates in some way to the adventure or its start. Fair enough. The plot thickens. Situation complications. GM inserts information about people, places, people, and events as it becomes relevant to the situation. Players' decisions drive the action. Note the situation. Describe internal revelation. For instance, in a very important party, complications include things running out of food, easily offending guest, and the guest of honor's failure to show. GM's mechanics when character actions. Right. GM Master is also in charge of the haphazardry cards and haphazardry timer, which can be a timer on foot. Author prefers mechanical timer as the tick 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 becomes quite unnerving for players. GM sets a timer to go off at regular intervals throughout the session, usually about every 30 minutes, or when it's on the higher end if your group's spends more time role-playing, less if they're driven by getting things done, or if the situation emphasizes farce and manic escalations. Change interval as designed. Each time the timer goes off, haphazard cycle ends, and the number of things happen. Players jump in. What? The players jump in their seats. Any knacks used for deeds in the last haphazard cycle reset. Characters again have access to all their knacks. Alright, hold on one moment. Okay. Sorry. Sorry, just checking on something. It's fine. All right, moving on. Hello. Any character is an absolute animality or absolute poetry at cycle's end becomes somewhat functional again. Affects the last single cycle from the last haphazard card drawn go away, and GM draws a new haphazard card. Simplifiers consequences. This time, characters complete the task or resolve the problem. At any rate, they come to an ending point. RiverBank is fundamentally cozy, so even abject failure, which is unlikely, ends with the friends having a collective sigh and returning to their safe, happy, fun-filled lives. Okay. So, that's your general overview of how a whole session goes. I think maybe, do we have time? We can maybe kind of do a quick look at the basic mechanics of how deeds work. What are deeds and how you do them? So, okay, so deeds. Decide you want to do a thing. GM decides the scale, whether it's a simple deed, meaning a single roll, a complex, which is several things, several different deeds, all technically rolled separately, and all need to succeed, whether it can be done solo or collaborative, meaning with collaborative. Determine the deed category, target, and then finally come up with a target number, which is the deed's base difficulty plus any modifiers for importance, urgency, oddness, and any foes that might be involved. And the player rolls a d4 to determine their challenge stat, which is what they use to build their challenge number. Rather than accepting, if they don't like that roll, they can instead summon Pother, in which case they use Pother as the challenge stat. The player gets their challenge number by taking their stats, score, any bonuses from any knacks they use, modifiers from innate peculiarities, insufficiencies, ongoing side effects, etc., and then finally rolling a d6 on top of all that. Characters succeed or fail. Decide if they succeed or fail. Ties are success. As for the character, to avoid failure, you can buy animality or poetry points. If they use AP points to convert a failure into success, GM determines whether the deed aligns with animality or poetry. The player rolls the appropriate number of dice and applies the result to their range. Okay. And finally, describe any side effects. So, again, I really kind of like this because this adds a nice the roll for your stat, which stat you use. I like that. It adds a bit of chaos. It's nice. It's interesting. Okay. Need scale most required by one character. Make a single challenge roll by one character, making them simple, but GM may consider a task large, complicated enough to need several challenges, making it complex. Choose which deeds are simple and which are complex. Make decision. Things like what's best for pacing, how important or successful completion of the task is to the character in the session, specific strengths or weaknesses of the character, and just general preference. Okay. The categories. Okay, here we go. This is also something. These are where knacks potentially come in. Attention. Deeds covering noticing things around you. Perception checks looking for traps or treasures. Tracking someone not present, staying on task, catching something out of the corner of your eye, etc. Braininess. Knowing things, researching things, intelligent guessing, scheduling, having the right book at home. Clever pause. Okay. So this is there are certain things you're expected. I'm just going to assume animals can somehow do despite not necessarily having hands and with thumbs and such, but hey, they can usually probably do it in a certain amount of time. But this is potentially for things that are like, you don't do it much, or you're trying to do it quickly, that sort of thing. Legerdemain, actions requiring deftness, working with tools, making or icing a cake, fiddly things like fly tying, card tricks, etc. Discretion, sneaky stuff. Sway, being interacting with people, begging, persuasion, haggling, negotiating, social, news, parley, trickery, etc., etc. Valor, he's fighting, attacking, running very fast. This is your athletic, outdoorsy, just doing physical activity, I suppose would be a catch-all. Okay. So yeah, calculated number, base difficulty, easy, middling, or hard. There's base difficulty of an easy deed is 5. Examples being borrowing sugar from an amiable human. Human, finding a reticule dropped on the river walk, digging a hole. Middling deed. Okay, easy deed is something you can do without much trouble, given a little thought and a bit of patience. Might be opening a strange door using unfamiliar ring of keys. You know how keys and locks work, but might take a try or two to open this particular door. Middling deeds seem well within the abilities of most animals as long as they have some time to think it through and don't feel anxious or pressured. Might be middling to open a simple locked door by sliding a spatula into the crack between the door and the jamb. Many animals can't do a hard deed even if they have plenty of time and space to figure it out. Animals in RiverBank can do some quite surprising things, like writing songs and knitting coaties. Coatee is, as we might surmise, a little coat. Okay. But certain actions remain beyond good number of them. For instance, build an entire motor car would be really hard no matter how lucky you were and how much you knew about motor cars. Unlocking a door by picking a lock using a hairpin would be a hard deed. Okay. Other things that can variables that can affect the difficulty. Importance, obviously more important. And again, this stuff is usually like 1 or 2. Importance, urgency, oddness, and foes, presumably whether someone is trying to stop you. And there's a handy chart about foes. And just a handy table for going, okay, cool, here's the base numbers, here's the modifiers, etc. Here's an example of how you do it. Build a challenge number. Again, we've kind of been over this. You have a challenge stat. You have add any knacks you used. You add or include any innate peculiarities, insufficiencies, side effects, between times or haphazardly artifacts, and any potential penalties for sense or charm for the animality poetry for where you are on that scale. Then you roll a d6 to get your final result. And you want this number to be equal or higher to this number to succeed. And again. Kind of goes. Ta-da. Okay, so and we have a number of failure side effects depending on the type of deed, the challenge stat versus the type of deed. So you know, charm isn't failing with charm isn't going to do anything if it was attention or braininess. But okay, so you know that's nice. There's an idea. Okay, here are the consequences of you failing. Okay. Summoning Pother. After initially failing at a deed, if your Pother score exceeds that of your challenge stat, you may choose to summon Pother, replacing the insufficient challenge stat with your Pother stat. This becomes your new challenge stat for the deed. You cannot summon Pother if you've rolled Pother randomly as the challenge stat for this deed, or if the random stat you rolled is higher than your Pother score. That's interesting because they have you roll a d4 for your challenge stat, but they want you to tell you to treat the 4 as a 0, so that's weird. If you summon Pother, there's always a side effect. After succeeding the deed, player rolls a d4 and consults Summoning Pother or side effects table. Oh boy, let's see. You cannot perform another. Can't perform this. Next deed, you must summon Pother. Haphazard cycle ends immediately. +1 bonus deed discretion. Okay. Foe deeds again. I don't want to get too dragged into all this stuff. So, but you get the idea. And I guess animality poetry. Outside summoning Pother to convert an initial deed failure to success, though it turns up in other places in the game as well. Probably closest thing to hit points you'll find in RiverBank, as it imposes consequences on your gameplay and likeliest way to lose. Start session at 0. Okay, animality is the call of the wild. Refers to animal nature, physicality, so-called baser instincts. For RiverBank, animals being compared to an ordinary animal or exhibiting their characteristics brings on the same distaste many Victorians expressed at the thought that they might be descended from monkeys. Yeah, that tracks. Okay, we are still hearing me. Good. Oh dear, that was a while back. Someone followed me a while back. I'm sorry for not mentioning that. I'm sorry, I didn't even hear you. Poetry is the call of the muse, catch-all term for the higher impulses, urge to create and improve, elevated admiration for some or all arts, aesthetic appreciation of nature in its romantic 19th century sense, etc., etc., etc. So, position on the range can change for various reasons. You might buy points to improve a challenge number by taking AP dice. Result of those dice rolls moves you along the AP range. You might sacrifice points from your AP to counteract a friend's absolute animality or poetry. Between the times where haphazard cards may affect your range. If you summon Pother, you may receive a random side effect that affects your position on the range, or certain activities just trigger automatic AP changes. Alright, so if challenge number fails to reach the deed's target number, you can buy up to 4 AP points to add to your challenge number until you reach the target number and succeed at the deed. You may buy only as many points as you need to succeed and no more. For each point you buy, however, you roll a d4 minus 1, resulting in between 0 and 3, and apply the results to your AP range. Results slide you towards animality or poetry. The GM determines the direction of Oh dear. Any deed aligns. Yeah, okay. When I say a character is absolute animality, behaves like an ordinary animal, though they remain an animal. Picture anthropomorphic toad removing all his clothes and jumping down in a muddy pool while clearly enunciating ribbit. The other extreme, absolute poetry. He becomes overwhelmed by the itness of it all and become essentially useless. Imagine a duck at a tea party hosting for a great aunt to coax her into paying for a new bicycle, leaping to her feet suddenly and crying, "The muse calls and I must answer." By the time you reach absolute poetry, you become a burden to your friends. As you move towards poetry, you might find yourself doing the following. Okay. Okay. Great. Oh dear. Oh dear. Okay, so I think that's giving a general basic idea of what this game is and what it's about. So we're gonna call it there, I think. Okay, yeah, we've been going for a bit over an hour at this point. Yeah. I feel like that kind of nicely makes up for the very short stream I did Friday. Hey, and again, sorry. Thank you, White Steam Bun Mage, for the follow. I'm sorry I missed that, but I had headphones kind of on and music, and yeah. So, but anyway, this game looks really fun. I hope you like it. It looks... I will, if you're watching this on YouTube, I will almost certainly include links in the thing description for where you can purchase it and or download the free material, what free materials there are. I kind of want to try running this. I kind of want to try doing a session with this, and I might have some people who would be interested. I don't know. I need to talk with folks about it. We'll see if that happens. Excuse me. But I will not be either way. I will not be streaming this Friday. So this kind of... So think of this stream as kind of sort of also making up for that. Next time we'll be back on the 21st, where I will probably, not probably, we will be back in Dragon Age 2, and we'll be doing the Mark of the Assassin DLC. Otherwise, I'm Sean, Librarian Writer Geek. I hope you've had a good time. Remember, Librarian Writer Geek on Twitch and YouTube. Follow, subscribe, do all that stuff so you'll know when I'm going live. Also, check me out on Blue Sky. I post there when I go live over on live stream. I should probably also... I would post when I put things on YouTube, but I automate that anyway, so it's all kind of... yeah. Otherwise... go to my website. It has links to this stuff and other things. Anyway, hope you've have a good one. Bye.